I'm here today with Laura Lakhwara, and Laura is VP Growth at Soapbox. Hey, Laura, it's really good to see you again.
Hi, Lori. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we met up because of a Wednesday Women's event when I went to SaaStr, and there was a kind of a breakfast thing. And so, shout out to Wednesday Women. It was a really cool event, don't you think?
I do. We're lucky to be in a phase of the world where all these tech events, you have all these side coffees, happy hours, and Wednesday Women does a really good job making sure people have their asks and then their offers. And so it creates this dynamic where people are sharing what their needs are, everyone's networking and trying to help each other. So it was one of the best parts of Sesser itself.
Yeah, I agree. It was just phenomenal. So, shout out to them. And I got to be connected to you, and I looked at your history, and I was just thinking this would make a really great episode because sales paths don't go in a straight line. They can go all over the map. And you're running growth now, which means
Mhm.
you're overseeing sales and marketing, but you had a real strong customer success background and leading customer success. So I want to talk a little bit about that today, but let's go back to when you went to school. What did you think you were going to do when you graduated?
Sure. So I hadn't thought that far ahead. When I was in undergrad, I was studying both marketing communications and public relations. So I knew I had this strong background and interest in those areas. And what's funny is I moved to New York City. I was going to go into PR, but then I ended up going into events, something completely different. And we're just going to have fun in the background today, aren't we?
What's your cat's name?
Falafel.
Falafel.
Like the food, like the food. And so it's funny because all those skill sets and those things that I thought I would be doing are actually turning into what is so often when you think about sale deals and actually the application of communications, messaging, you think about running a deal cycle, all those pieces, they're so relevant to what I studied and many aspects of my early career at that time.
That's interesting. So it is all coming together for
It
you.
does. It's continuous ongoing. You keep building skills and collecting new strategies and mindsets. And so you start off with something I've made a lot of turns. And I think both New York City and San Francisco exposed me to things I didn't know existed. I didn't know customer success existed. I never thought about the tech industry from a sales perspective. And it wasn't until I went to MBA that I really started transitioning into more corporate opportunities and learning a whole totally new field of jobs, companies that I wasn't aware of from St. Louis, Missouri back in 2007.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly even today, there are a lot of women that I talk to, women in universities who don't know that sales is a career that you
Mhm.
can and have a very full business life like I am, just involved in B2B selling. And then all the spin-offs for RevOps and all different side things that are happening and the training. And I just think that there's so many different options there. Someone told me there were like 30 different roles that are connected to sales. I don't know if that's true, but it's got to be up there.
It's incredibly high. And you think about the layers, and you can go as technical as you want to in that realm. And I think that was also a cliff that I had studied information systems during my MBA, but it was something that tooling and technology and operations was something that was just in the core from like 2008. That was already showing up in my career. And so when you start looking at where you can take this and when you're young, there is a lot of education that has to happen. And that's why women in sales organizations so important because the more that you partner with universities, partner with people early in their 20s, there's a lot of education that can happen and transferable skills that really might be missed based on the current networking recruitment that exists today.
Yeah, you mentioned New York and San Francisco. What did you think of Silicon Valley when you learned about when you got more involved in tech and you got more involved that there's actually a career in sales? Tell us a little bit about that.
Or I got moved to San Francisco. I was moved to San Francisco by IBM to be a client exec to Apple. And I knew once I got into my second year of MBA, I knew I wanted to be in the tech industry. And San Francisco was just an option. And then I had a recruiter I met at a conference really lean into, hey, there's this a client exec position. This might be perfect for you. Let's have you interview. And moving to San Francisco was the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Wow.
Hands down, best thing that's happened, not only career, but personally. And what is so incredible about San Francisco, this is 2014 when I moved, is you have this excitement of startups, you have the fangs growing, and it's just this electric energy. And my favorite memory, Lori, and it still gives me chills today, is that I had a call from my boss. I'm still in training at this time with IBM, going through the entire technical stack, hardware, software, but I'm already starting to engage with the account. She calls me up and says, tomorrow you need to be down at Apple on campus at 8 a.m., be business casual. I can tell you nothing more. And I drive down, I'm like a little excited because Apple is Apple.
Sure.
And so to be on their campus, and it's the day that Ginny Rometty, the CEO of IBM at that time, and the CEO, Tim Cook, announced our partnership.
Wow.
And so IBM was going to just started doing enterprise sales of Apple devices, which is really back over a decade ago, unheard of.
Yes.
So moving out to the Bay Area allowed me to experience things that still to this day were magical moments, right place, right time, people taking bets on me that proved and turned and changed my entire career and opened up to where I am today.
Oh, that is so awesome. Yeah. And just the fact that you worked for IBM, I mean, that's unusual because a lot of people don't know the machine that IBM was at one time. I worked with IBM back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then to partner with Apple, that was a very cool. You learned a lot about collaboration and partnership, I'm sure, because that was pretty unheard of even back then.
Those were two companies that never would have had a partnership a decade earlier, 5 years earlier. And for both of them to see what would be a great strategic opportunity, what a change in time. And I have to say, IBM, kudos to them. They gave the best undergrad and grad school graduate training that I think existed really. And I don't know if there are companies really investing, but 6 months paid training.
Well, yeah,
Incredible.
they've always been good at that, which is really incredible. But you moved on from IBM. What happened next?
I went to a startup and I was at a startup for a few months and it was a very dramatic shift.
Ah,
And we parted paths. And then actually I went to SoftBank Robotics. And I like to share the startup piece because I think it's important that sometimes we make decisions and they don't work out. And it's very hard at that time, but I learned a lot from that. It was an incredible team and it gave me the needs to know for both parties how to suss out a good startup opportunity. I ended up going to SoftBank Robotics as their first customer success hire. SoftBank Robotics is its own company and division, a part of SoftBank Group. And so we launched humanoid robotics, commercial cleaning robotics, take your Roomba and commercialize it through COVID. So I was there for over 3 years building out their customer success function from the ground up.
and so, did you think when you first were told this is a customer success role, did you think how it might parlay? Did it seem like it made a lot of sense? Or,
It was something that quickly became clear. I was in early chatbot AI. You got IBM Watson, you have chatbots, and I was specializing in that space already. And the technology was still catching up. So I started getting really confident in that farming, that adoption, that let me really take the existing technology. Let's get your team getting the value out of it and let's get that growth and renewal. Even during my time in sales at IBM, I was already as account exec, you're looking at those renewals as well. So when you look at account management and an AE role at an IBM, you're already doing some customer success activity. And so being a part of AI technologies early on, this is once again, you're looking then at 2017. I had spent substantial time with IBM Watson building and selling chatbots. I was already getting excited by that post sale stage because that I think is the magic that happens in technology. Yes, it's incredible to sell this vision, but to actually get to that value realization, partner with customers, and really be strong in product, be strong at being an advocate for that customer was really became a sweet spot for me, especially at that time in my career. And I think it was just a natural transition for me to really think about that customer journey and what that looks like from a different angle than this just the sales angle.
Yeah, and then you led CS teams at a number of places, and now today you're overseeing growth in general, like sales and marketing, right?
Correct.
An interesting path.
It's they each have different pieces that I just had this great conversation yesterday about signals. And I think it's an incredible when you think of the journey and the pathway a customer takes and how each role, whether it's the marketing and bringing them in and educating them, whether it's nurturing that lead to get to an actual close and that contract portion to then finally getting to the adoption, value realization, and then that renewal. There's all these signal pieces. There's all these journey pieces that are so important. And I think each role has some things that I learn, I break, I fail some things, and then you just get better and better towards that end goal, which is really continuing that relationship with the customer, having them show up year and year, continuing to need your product, continue those relationships and those pieces.
And being a woman leader in tech, how did you find that? Did it flow for you? Did things work out well? I've run into a number of women lately who are launching their own fractional business or consultancy because they just don't want to be in the male majority world anymore. Is that something that got to you at all or not?
A great question. And I think things roll in phases. I think there are times where it's been just incredibly enriching. I've had great sponsors. I've had great examples of really diverse like leadership with just powerhouse people that are strong, nurturing the rest of the company. And then I've had the reversal of that where the organization wasn't healthy. There were behaviors, there were things that weren't bringing out the growth, the scale of the people, the organization. And so I've seen both sides. And I think the luxury is that when you grow within this industry and you grow within time in any career, you're going to experience both highs and lows with, all genders and all different types of relationships. And the way I see it is that I get to choose. I chose Soapbox. We went to business school together and we, now we, but he originally built a team that fostered a really great amount of encouragement, of testing and failing, of learning and growing the team. And it's now 6 years. And so I think that's what's exciting is that I'm in a fortunate position that I got to choose to be here and I continue to get to choose to show up to a place that has a great culture and fit.
Yeah, and that's not to be underestimated. I just tell people all the time. I just talked to a woman who's graduating with her MBA and she's looking at different opportunities. And I said, you got to find a company that has the values that you believe in and the
Mhm.
leadership. The person that you report to needs to be someone that will teach you and support you and let you fail and help you succeed. And to me, that's more important. It's important to have a product or service that you believe in, certainly, but not the name of the company. Is really who the leadership is, what they stand for. Would you agree or do you see it a different way?
100%. And now my advice has a plus. Make sure that manager or team that you're following is going to stay. I followed different people and sometimes things change. And that's where the broader team, the organization, it's important to buy into those fully. And that's been the make and break. I am a type A person that loves I love my jobs. I love the work that I do. I love the teams. And when you're very passionate about what you do, that fills a big piece of your identity. You do have to figure out what that fit is, identify what's going to be in your lane of comfort, where you want to grow, and be selective with those pieces if you have the opportunity to. I definitely had places where I didn't have an option. Bills were due, and you're accepting the best that you can get and what's in front of you. And I've had times where I did not make much money in New York City. I really barely made it ends meet. I barely had anything going through business school. And so those decisions, I never want to rob someone of the truth that sometimes we make choices that
Right.
are difficult, and we thrive, survive in jobs that aren't the perfect fit, aren't the perfect, but they add a stepping stone. There is a magic in career when you can look back 20 years and see how these different harder stepping stones got us to something else.
Yeah, I was a single mom in my early years of sales, and I had to
Mhm.
make decisions based on where I had to drive to where I worked. So I had to think of location and I had to think of what was in the best interest of what I was building with my family. So it definitely sometimes you just have to just suck it up. I don't know a better way to say it, but
There is no
deal with
pretty
it.
way to say it.
There's not a pretty way to say it, but it is true that ultimately I say go where you're celebrated and not tolerated because ultimately it sucks to work in a company where
Yeah.
your ideas are not being valued. You know that you're making less than your male counterpart who came there after you did, or just some, once you learn some fundamental things, women are still underpaid in general.
Yeah.
And we get data on that every year or two. So we need to go where we can really grow and be appreciated. So ultimately, that's what I encourage people to do. But sometimes you do have to write it out a little while because of your circumstances.
And sometimes we assume we know what's going to happen at a place. And sometimes that ride can turn. And that's also then an interesting thing is that longevity, there's a lot of growth in longevity. Not all of us have the luxury of getting to what is 5 years at a place. And that's the reality of the amount of change and layoffs that are happening. But when you do get a company where you can grow in, that is sometimes we're on a path of change so quickly that sometimes when we sit at it, there's new things that we don't know about that can happen at a company.
Yeah, absolutely. So you saw actual CS people who did have sales skills and probably didn't have sales skills. What do you think is the importance of knowing or figuring out who can help upsell, who can help renew customers? Not everyone is good at that. Do you just
Yeah,
need
I think that there's like number one, the commercial training and really learning to negotiate, learning to bring in the executive sponsors, the multi-threaded pieces of a deal. I've been in enterprise a really long time. So a lot of my advice leans that way is that it's a sale of multiple parties, a part of this, and you're bringing in different folks. And so when I look at the customer success team that I've managed, they were already moving towards renewals. They were already, whether they, it was bonus structured, but whether they had an actual commission plan or not, our teams always had that leadership, that executive relationship, and the pieces needed to close that deal. They just weren't always photoed the same way and those components. So my advice always is for anyone looking to go into sales from that role is I think becoming rigorous on the sales cycle, rigorous on the actual success of that and taking some stabs of owning those pieces. But I think it's changed already. I do think CS is being forced to own that and the CS teams are being reevaluated. Right now, we don't have a customer success team in the traditional sense at Soapbox. We have a premium support team, and then I have the account execs owning the renewals at the stage we're at. And I'm curious that if a year from now, what reevaluation I might be having on customer success as the industry continues to change and what that looks like. But I'm excited for CS. I'm excited for the changes to come, because I think that tie to renewal is incredibly important and incredibly important for your customers.
So,
So,
yeah.
because they're planning, they're thinking quarters out what they're going to be doing with your tool and how this fits in their ecosystem and what value they're getting from it.
Yeah, and when money was free flowing in tech, it was different. Now it's like you need to talk with customers after they've just gotten your product to see how they're using it and how they're liking it, if they are using it, and not wait till 6 months in or at the end,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, it's time to renew," and they haven't talked to anybody for months.
Lori, did you see this report that went out that month 2 and 3 are the highest percentage close rate of actually getting your next year's renewal? There
Wow.
was this, like, people's appetite because they're seeing the success is top of mind, and you slip in some sort of multi-year contract or additional discount if they get the renewal early. It was really fascinating discussion on LinkedIn that just went behind this. And it's so obvious, but hard to put in practice, actually, I think.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. So, what do you read or do to stay motivated and to learn? We have AI happening now, so many different things.
So my strategy is, yes, love reading. Let's follow a ton of people on LinkedIn. Some of the go-tos, and I did write these down because I don't want to mess them up. So if I ever want to go deep into product side, because we're a small company, I'm really curious of how our offering and how we sell obviously is relevant to our customers. And so I love Lenny's podcast. It's very different, the PM podcast, but very different. And I'm at a phase right now where I'm trying to learn and be curious about everything that isn't in the last 20 years of what I've been doing. So, like Lenny's podcast, Kyle Player with Growth Unhinged, he's been writing extensively with a team of people on how pricing is changing and consumption models and what that means for AI. And then two people I need to call out, Chad Hornfeld and Elizabeth Blass. They have new books coming out for customer success. So the customer success industry is having this fun time of people writing about their experiences. There's more out there in terms of podcasts, coaching, and books now than ever. Like joining CS today and sales as well, anything in go to market, you have a ton of options out there. But those are some of the things I'm looking at and excited for. But generally, I'm having conversations just like we're almost having now and really interviewing a lot of people. I'm at a very big vendor assessment stage right now, looking at what I can be doing, like everyone to 2x, 3x the output of each of their team members. And everyone's having the same challenge budgets, headcount, time, all constrained. So where do you put that spend? And that's why SaaStr was so important to me. That's why a lot of the networking I did from that event was now they're going into now one-on-one conversation. I'm like, show me your tech stack. Show me why. What's happening? Because AI and automation's happening so much faster. And I've been waiting for this time and still can't get over this decision tree, like chatbots I used to work in. And we used to develop and build these like exchanges. And now that what we have today, it's incredible. And so I'm trying to learn from the best, learn from people that are doing it, and trying to save my startup as well. Yeah, some headaches from poor decision making, start building out the best go to market motion we can.
Oh, that's fantastic. Laura, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you a little better. I'm so glad that we met up there and in when we were at SaaStr, and continued success to you, and keep us posted on what's new going on in your world, and we'll share it.
Lori, I'm a big fan, really big fan of this podcast and women's sales. So thank you so much for having me today.
You bet. It's Laura Lakhwara, VP Growth at Soapbox. Thank you so much.